An otherworldly flight, a flying demon, and mortified onlookers. To say that this painting by the legendary French painter William-Adolphe Bouguereau is striking would be an understatement. But the thing is, while it may look straightforward, there is actually a whole mythology, history, and the personal struggles of two separate artists being depicted on this canvas. That's right. Today we're going to talk about Bouguereau's masterpiece, Dante and Virgil, and all the little things it represents. First of all, let's talk about the man behind it all. Bouguereau. Born in La Rochelle in 1825, the French painter had to painstakingly carve his way towards success and greatness by giving it his all. Coming from a non-art background, he had to prove his mettle time and time again, and did it by winning award after award at the Academy to the point that his fellows had to petition the Institute to not give him any more awards. But the thing is, he wasn't just satisfied by being great. He wanted to be the greatest. And his idea of that was winning the Prix de Rome Art Prize. But for the longest time, that prize eluded him. He painted artwork after artwork, hoping to win, but would fail year after year. And you guessed it, this was one of those attempts. Inspired by Dante's timeless poem, The Divine Comedy, this painting fits right into Bouguereau's earlier work with its gothic and macabre themes, and it's an incredible depiction of artistic skill. But before we talk about that, let's take a look at what the painting is actually about. The Divine Comedy revolves around two characters, Dante and Virgil, as shown in the painting. Describing his journey after death, in the light of Virgil's guidance, the poet talks about how he visited souls in heaven, hell, and purgatory. Commissioned by a private collector, Bouguereau decided to depict this scene in his artwork in the most thoughtful and brief way possible. And if you know even a little about Bouguereau, you already know that he spent a lot of time obsessing over the simplest and the most intricate details of his artwork. Unlike other artists, it was never a first-try thing for him. Instead, he was known for meticulously practicing and studying every single detail of his paintings and sketches before finalizing them. The palette, the texture, the clothing, the physical details, their relationship with the religious imagery, what parts should be highlighted, every single aspect was deeply scrutinized and analyzed before they made it to the final painting. And all of this hard work made sense and paid off in the end because there are very few other examples of art with the same level of mastery when it comes to capturing textures along with the most realistically apocalyptic and nightmare-esque backgrounds with such beautiful yet raw details of human expressions. Background of the painting. Masterpieces like Dante and Virgil need special dedication, hard work, and desire to be executed the way it was, and Bouguereau's desperation to win the Prix de Rome scholarship made it possible. After participating and losing twice, he was willing to do whatever it takes to win it, even if it meant taking his art to hell. But why was Bouguereau so, excuse the pun, hell-bent on winning the scholarship? Well, if there's one thing similar between the art students in the 17th and 21st centuries, it's the fact that their careers lack security. And since Bouguereau wasn't really from a wealthy background, there was excessive pressure on his shoulders as his father wasn't too enthusiastic regarding his career choices. And the Prix de Rome scholarship gave an extremely rare and valuable chance to young and upcoming artists to study in Rome. Bouguereau had a stellar reputation when it came to participating in competitions and winning scholarships, except for the Prix de Rome scholarship, since he lost it twice. And when a student as talented as William-Adolphe Bouguereau didn't win it, everyone, even the student body, protested in his favor and believed that he was worthy of it more than anyone else. Fast forward, after graduating and moving to the city of romance and lights, Bouguereau knew that he had to prove it to himself, his father, and everyone that following his passion wasn't a wrong decision, that he could make his name and immortalize himself through his art by walking down this path, even if it wasn't the most traditional or secure career option. And he did that. The painting. Without going into details or discussing the meaning behind them, let's just take a step back and look at the painting. What do we see? We see two men engaged in combat. But is that all there is to the picture? No. Look at the left. Can you see two other men standing there and observing what's happening? According to a lot of interpretations, Those two men are Dante and Virgil. Now, let's move on to the next character, the one in the air with wings and an evil grin. Can you see where the demon's eyes are? They're towards Dante and Virgil, who are unaware of the gaze on them and are busy observing the fight happening in front of them. Besides that, we see several naked figures, seemingly in pain and not paying attention to the fight between the two men that everyone else is fixated upon. Nothing new, probably the most common thing you'll see in hell. Now that we're done taking a rough look at all the characters in the painting, let's check out the background. The color palette used in this painting is beautiful and in touch with every emotion displayed in it. The warm tones, the shades of red, and the harsh strokes used in the background remind us of a place full of pain, suffering, and punishment. That's right, folks. They remind us of hell. The theme and depiction of the painting. Now it's time to assign names and backgrounds to each character. First of all, let's talk about the center of attention, the men engaged in ruthless and seemingly bloodthirsty combat. The red-haired man is named Gianni Schicchi, and Bouguereau has done a magnificent job at depicting the animosity in his expressions through his eyebrows. Here, you cannot see Gianni's teeth dug into his opponent Capoccio's neck, but we can see that he's kept him in position by twisting one of his arms completely backwards, so it's unable to move while digging his nails into Capoccio's ribcage. The prey, Capoccio, on the other hand, seems to have surrendered as we can see Gianni's knee aimed at his lower back and pressing against it, making it even more impossible for him to move his left arm. Capoccio's right hand seems to be gripping Gianni's fiery red hair in a rather meager grip, as a weak attempt to move his teeth away from his neck, while his left hand is, of course, immobile due to the dominant redhead's iron grip. As we look at the landscape behind the fighting men, we see fleshy tones beautifully combined with the grayish hues of the stone ground along with the perfect shades of orange, all of which contrast beautifully and highlight the porcelain skin of the fighting men in the most ethereal yet haunted way possible. The meaning of the painting. To understand this painting, you might have to read Dante Alighieri's evergreen poem The Divine Comedy, where Dante travels through the 9 concentric circles of hell under Virgil's guidance. In the painting, Bouguereau has depicted the 8th circle of hell, meant for fraudsters, and the two men fighting happen to be there just because of that. The brunette, Capoccio, being terribly beaten up in the painting by Gianni, was an alchemist. In his life, he had committed fraud by impersonating a dead man named Busso Donati so that his relatives could change his will and inherit his property. But this isn't the only crime he committed. In fact, Capoccio double-crossed Busso's greedy relatives and ended up stealing all the inheritance himself. And of course, in the back, you see a bunch of people, probably fraudsters, being punished and tormented for their sins. You know, just the everyday stuff you'd see in hell, nothing new. Oh, and how can we forget about the demon that's so keenly and smugly observing Dante and Virgil? Legacy. Although this painting couldn't win Bouguereau the Prix de Rome, that couldn't stop it from becoming one of his most well-known paintings of all time. Instead, Zenobia, found by shepherds on the banks of the Araxes, was the masterpiece that earned Bouguereau the scholarship to study in Rome, the very year he finished Dante and Virgil. One of the most interesting things about this painting is that Bouguereau was going through a crisis because his rather unsafe and financially questionable career and his condition was quite similar to the religious crisis that Dante was going through when he wrote the Divine Comedy, on which the painting is based. For Dante, religion meant a lot, and for Bouguereau, his passion was so important that he was willing to take the risk that came along with choosing an unusual and non-traditional career. But ultimately, it all worked out, as Bouguereau went on to become one of the richest and most famous artists of all time. His art career was so successful that a lot of his paintings got sold even before they were finished, and every piece was reportedly sold for around $300 million adjusted, according to today's economy and inflation. Despite all the riches and fame, Bouguereau is not super popular among his own community, as a lot of artists thought of him as a well-paid painter of pretty things and traditional art that rejected everything everything about them. That is probably why a lot of his paintings were considered trash by the Impressionists, and were even actually thrown into the trash as well, since a lot of them are unknown now. However, nothing can change the fact that his well-executed, detailed paintings with one of the most tasteful palettes ever were practically flawless, and were the epitome of perfection. So click on any one of the 4 videos on your screen right now.